I'm analyzing patient John Delaney. I'll double click on the patient name to open up the file. And I'm going to start analysis working from left to right. First going to edit. This is where I can edit all the patient information, demographics, referring physician, indications for the test, patient diary symptoms, if there are any. You can enter the time, it will come up later on during the scan, patient medication, and so on and so forth. Next, I'm going to move into view, where I'll be going through the beats. This is where all our bins are, starting with normal beats. And usually there's no need to go into those, especially with a nice and clean scan as this one here. So I'm going to move right into ventricular beats. There are 133 VPBs. I'm going to work through the bins, starting with bin number 1. There's only one character here. I can see it right on the screen, so I don't need to go into this one. It's a correct label. Moving on to the next bin, 86 characters here. I can look at them one at a time, or if I want to see all 86, I can click on a view, which gives me half page of VPBs. Or else, if I want to make it a full page, all I need to just tag any of these boxes and use the Z button on your keyboard. And here you have options of looking at 30 by 20 characters or 20 by 10, 12 by 6, whatever you feel comfortable with. And this is 12 by 6. So I'm just going to move down, look through all these, and they all seem to be correct. Now keep in mind, at the bottom here, you're not actually at the very bottom of the page. In order to get there, you need to double click on the last box, scroll all the way down, and double click again. This shows you all the rest of the characters there. So I'm satisfied. These are all ventricular. Again, tagging any of these beats and using the Z button to go back to the bins. Moving on to the next, bin number 3, 16 characters here. Again, Z button. All these are correct again. So same idea, Z button again. And finally the last one. So I do have some ventricular beats here. I also have some artifact or normal beats. I'm just going to change them all into artifact. Now, in order to do that, I just need to tag them. I can do it one at a time, or I can click and drag, pick as many as I like. And you can work from right to left, left to right. It's very flexible that way. The bottom few here, actually the whole part, we're going to change to artifact as well as this beat here. Now what I'm left with, this I cannot really tell from looking such a small size. So I'm just going to double click on the beat here to go into page mode or full disclosure, which will allow me to look at it at the full disclosure. So obviously it's an artifact, so I can go back to the bin, tag it, and there's one more here which I missed before, and change those to artifact. Now I'm also seeing some supraventricular beats, like this one here, for example. So again, just to double check whether I'm correct or not, I'm going to double click, and sure enough, there's a P wave hiding here, so it's a supraventricular beat. And I have one here, a couple of them here, and the one at the bottom. So to change these into supraventricular, I already have them tagged. Press S, and this takes care of it. So everything else is ventricular. Again, using the Z key to get out of there. And we're pretty much finished with editing all the ventricular beats. So again, moving over to the supraventricular. There are 901 of those. So we're going to start with bin number 1. Again, click on the view. And using the Z key, bring it up on the full page. And I can either use the mouse or a keyboard using the arrows up or down or page down. In order to do that though, you need to tag any of these beats first and then use the page down button on your keyboard. And all I'm looking at are all supraventricular beats. And all these seem to be correct. So again, just double check the very bottom of the page, double click on the last one, scroll it down, and double click again, so all these are correct. Again, tagging any of these beats using the Z key to get out of there, moving on to the next, bin number 2. And again, all these seem to be fine. So I'm happy with this bin. Moving on to the next one. There are only 14 characters here. I don't even have to go to the screen. I can look them up from this position here. Same idea with this one. And finally, the last bin with 4 beats only. So this pretty much concludes editing through the supraventricular beats. One more thing to look at are artifact or noise beats. It's always a good idea to check those. Sometimes you may find some ectopic beats in the artifact bins. So there's only one here. I don't have to go into that one since I can see it on the screen. Moving on to the next bin. And most of these beats are normal, but I'm not going to waste my time changing them all to normal. There's only 20 odd some beats, so I'm quite happy with that. And these seem to be fine, okay, as well. And finally the last artifact bin, and I can see the ventricular beat here, so I'm just going to change it to ventricular. I'm just going to double click first, have a look at it. Sure enough, it's ventricular. So as long as it's highlighted like this, all I need to just press the V to change the designation. And we're pretty much done with the editing at this point. Next step is to move into the episode. So this brings up all the ventricular beats, couplets, triplets, supraventricular isolated beats, couplets, triplets, runs of SVT, and so on and so forth. So again, starting from the top with ventricular beats. I have seen them all already while working through our bins, so just a quick glance whether I haven't missed anything. And they seem to be all correct. One ventricular couplet, double click on this one and that's correct. One ventricular triplet, this one is correct as well. Moving on to supraventricular beats. Again, view. And just quickly scroll through since we have seen them all before. Now there's a supraventricular beat right here, which is not detected. I'm just going to double click. And it's actually a triplet. So in order to change these 2 beats to supraventricular, I can either click on each single one of them and change to supraventricular, or I can do them both at the same time by clicking on the first one and holding Shift key down on your keyboard and clicking on the second one. So this highlights both of them. And at this point I can change it to supraventricular. And while I'm here, there's another beat that's early. And if I want to change it, I can do it from here. And going back to, before I do that, I can change this beat to supraventricular as well. So double click to go back to my beats and just finishing through that category. Z button to go back, and I'm looking next at 87 supraventricular couplets. So again, sometimes it's easier to look at them at a little faster speed, so I'm going to change from 10 to 5, and this actually shows you more beats on the screen, so it's probably easier for, at least it's easier for me to detect them. Now I'm looking at this particular square here. There is a supraventricular beat that's not detected, so I'm just going to double click and have a look. There's actually a couple of them, so I'm going to change them one at a time to supraventricular and go back to my couplets. Again, double click on the last one, scroll down all the way, double click again. This shows me the bottom view. And these all seem to be correct, so I'm happy with the couplets. Moving on to the triplets. And again, same idea, they all seem to be fine. This is a little fast, so I just want to double check that, double click, go into full disclosure, and sure enough, it's a correct triplet. And moving on, there are 15 runs of supraventricular tachycardia. Now, since it's quite difficult to determine whether the supraventricular beats are all correctly identified, I'm just going to double click and go through them one at a time, since this shows me a little longer strip here. So, and again, same idea, I can either work with the mouse or the keyboard using the arrow down on your keyboard takes me to the next event. And all these runs seem to be fine. I don't see the end of it, so I'm just gonna drag it over just to make sure the whole run is selected, and keep going through the rest of them. And this is the 15th run, so I'm quite happy with it. All of these runs are correct. Just going to scroll it down, moving on to, we don't need to go into inhibition, moving on to bradycardia. There's 59 episodes of bradycardia. And just a quick glance whether we are not missing anything, or there are any pauses or heart blocks, and everything seems to be fine. There's a supraventricular beat here, I believe. Just going to double click here. And this is the early one here, so I'm just going to change it to supraventricular and go back. There's another one here. Double click. There's another supraventricular beat here, so I'm just going to go and look at that one. There's actually a few here. So I'm going to change these two as well. And have a look at the one that we originally wanted to check. So everything else seems to be okay. So Z button to go out of there. 172 episodes of tachycardia. Now here I'm going to change the speed to 10. That's because the rate is a little too high. So what I'm looking at, most of it is just sinus tachycardia, at least what it seems like to be sinus tachycardia. Apart from this box here and this box here, as you can see, there's no P waves visible, so I'm just going to double click and have a look at what's going on, and sure enough, this is another run. So I'm going to label as far as I can, again clicking on the first beat, holding the shift key down, and clicking on the last beat. This should change all of these beats to supraventricular tachycardia. Run. I'm just going to go back all the way. It's actually quite a long one. Just want to make sure I see the end of it and the whole run is labeled. Sometimes it's easier to change the speed again to 10, so this will speed up the process a little bit. It seems to be that all the beats are labeled correctly, even though I only changed the first few. And this is the end of it, so it's a correct label. Perfect. Moving on to the next one, and I'll repeat the same thing over here. So clicking on the first beat and towards the bottom of the end of the page, and changing the designation supraventricular one last beat as well. Again, go back to your 25 and look through the rest of it, which seems to be correct. So we've added 2 rounds of supraventricular tachycardia. From 15 you went to 17. Now 377 episodes of irregular rhythm. Again, there's another run here, or at least what it seems like to be. And sure enough, just going to change this as well as the last 3 beats. 4 beats rather. And this brings us to the next episode, and there's another run here, which I'm going to label and go back want to look at this beat here because it seems a little early to me, so I'm going to change it to supraventricular without the second beat and go back to my episodes. There's another beat here which I want to look at, and changing to supraventricular. Another couplet here, couplet here, couplet here. So I'm just going to start with this one and keep changing those to supraventricular. And that's the third one, I believe. You can shift down key, click on the second beat, and label supraventricular. There's another one here. I think it's an isolated one. And two more couplets here. Actually, there's an isolated beat and a couplet as well. And again, double click on the last box, scroll it all the way down. Another early beat. Double click to see the rest. And everything else seems to be okay. So again, using the Z key, I'm going to go back. So again, we've increased the number of runs to 19. Now the last thing to check here is the NN, or starting with the longest one. What I need to do is hold the left mouse click down, and from as far to the right as I can, drag it over. And I usually like to look at about 1,000 events or so. So once I pull them all up, again using the Z button on your keyboard, I'm just going to scroll down. Before I do that, there's a missed couplet, I believe, which I want to change. It's a triplet. And go back and look at the rest of those. Now, if there's something that we miss, we probably will come across this later on when we look at the shortest on NN. There's another one here, which I want to change, and keep going through. There's a couplet. Actually, it's another run. That's the couplet I was looking at. There's actually two of them here. And continue working through. One more. And again, I'm just going to double click on the last character and bring it all the way down just to see the longest one. And we have another one. I'm going to label. Now I'm going to work backwards, so just click up and go back until I do find the longest NN. And this seems to be, actually that's another one. As you can see, the P-waves are inverted, so I think it starts right here, so I'm going to select this, change them to supraventricular, Go back. This is another beat that I need to change, as well as this one. So I'm going to go back to the bottom, and this is our longest NN. So at this point I want to select the strip, so I want to show this in my summary. In order to do that, all I need to do is just click on select and type my own label. So this strip will figure into your report. And keep going back, just because I might be able to find something else that I haven't seen before. Another early beat. And again. There's quite a few of these here. And that's another couplet. So I'm going to move on to the shortest end, because chances are if there's any more SVBs, they probably will show up in my shortest end. So I'm going to repeat the same movement, just going from the left side of your screen. So hold the left mouse key down and drag it over. And again, about 1,000 events or so. And the first one is supraventricular, so I'm just going to double check whether this is what I'm looking at, and then keep moving through, changing them to supraventricular. There's a couple of them here. And another couplet. I'm just going to scroll down to check the rest of those. Another early beat. And I think I also have it down. Okay, so going back to the top of the page, I want to find my shortest NN. So I believe this is it. Again, select the strip label, and we are done. So at this point, we're finished with editing. If the patient had any symptoms, we can look them up here. You can look at full disclosure, change the time you want to look at. Just bring it down to wherever the patient indicated the symptom, and you can correlate this with the ECG. And the final step is moving on to the strips. So we can choose the strips which we want to show in the report. So 108 VPBs. None of the strips are marked, so what I'm going to do is just choose a couple. And all you need to do is just click on the strip and use the tab space bar on your keyboard to select the strip. So I have a couple of them. That's fine. Moving on to the ventricular couplets. This one is already selected for us, as is the striplet. Now, supraventricular beats, again, I'm going to choose a couple of beats here to show up in my report. Couplets, 102, and 5 of these are already selected, so I think that's plenty. Going through triplets, again, we have 5 strips selected for us already, so I'm happy with that. And 24 runs of supraventricular tachycardia. There's 5 beats selected. I want to make sure I have the longest one here, so I'm just gonna pick a few more. This one's 35 beats, it's already figuring the report. And I think there was a longer one. Maybe I'll show this one as well. So it's up to you. 853 beats, this is our longest run, so I definitely want to show this one. These we don't need the strips off, and then bradycardia, 56 episodes, I want to keep one. Same with tachycardia, just going to pick the first one here. Minimum heart rate, this is correct, as well as the maximum heart rate. ST changes, if there are any, we can select the strips of that as well. And these are the 2 strips which I selected before, the shortest NN and longest NN. So at this point we're finished with all the editing. The last thing that remains is to go into summary and type your interpretation. So this is a field where we're going to do it, and you can either choose your own interpretation or you can use any of the phrases from the menu bar here, and so on and so forth. So once you finish with your interpretation, the last thing to do is to save the report.